We're now going to have a look at microchords. This has been a frequent request, the ability to have more than 4 chords per bar, or in other words, more than 1 chord per beat. With this introduction of microchords, you can now have up to 4 chords per beat, or up to 16 chords per bar. So for example, for a slow funk tune, you could have chords changing on each 16th note. It can be done with any reel tracks, any style. It tends to be most effective at slower tempos, but you have complete control. You can use it with any reel track, any style, any tempo. So I have a file here that I've been working on, and I've actually used it in the playable reel tracks and multi-riff tutorials, and I'm going to continue doing some work on it in this tutorial by adding some microchords. So I've added a solo to these 8 bars here, bar 21 to 28. I'll just play a little bit of it. So I was focused in on these 2 chords here, and I was thinking it might be kind of cool to end the solo to have the rest of the band, besides the soloist, do some faster chords during these parts. So what I had in mind, we have the B minor here at bar 26. Instead of going directly to the D chord here, I was thinking it would go B minor, C sharp, and D to sort of ascend from here to the D and sort of go da-da-da. And then here I was thinking a similar kind of thing, but then it would go C sharp minor, D to E, so da-da-da. So I'm going to try that now. There are various ways you can enter microchords. You can just enter them right in the same way you're entering chords here, but there's actually a microchords dialog. And you can get to it by right-clicking, or you can also just press M and enter, and that brings up the microchords dialog as well. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here, and during this tutorial, I will get to all of it and show you the various elements of this screen. But right now, I'm just focused on the chords themselves. I'm going to move this up here just so I can see the chord underneath is a D here. Now, each section here is a different beat in this bar. This dialogue here basically represents a single bar of music, and since we did it at bar 27, it is the microchords for bar 27. So this is the first beat, this is the second beat, third beat, and the fourth beat. So within each beat, you can enter up to 4 chords. And as I mentioned before, then that means, of course, the total is you can enter up to 16 different chords in this single bar. I'm not going to enter 16 different chords myself. I'm just going to do what I described before and have that ascending thing at the beginning. So B minor, and then C sharp minor. You might have noticed I typed C3 minor. The 3, you don't have to put shift 3 to get the sharp. You can just type a 3 and it'll enter it as a sharp as well. And then D. And then I'm going to actually leave this bar for this one. I don't want to have the chords all changing through beats 2, 3, and 4. I just wanted this little ascending thing at the beginning. But then I want to do a similar thing, as I mentioned, at bar 28. Well, I don't have to exit this dialog and enter it again at bar 28. I can just use these arrows to toggle through. So I'll use that arrow, and now this is the microchords for bar 28. So now everything in here has to do with bar 28. So I want to do a similar thing here, but this time I will go C sharp minor, D, and then E. And that's all I wanted to do. So for now, I'll just press OK. Now you can see here that the chords I entered, the microchords, are stacked one on top of each other, but you can also see the underlying chord that was there before, the D, entered in but slightly faded out. So that is still the underlying chord, but these are the ones that will get played. And there's a good reason why this underlying chord is still visible and is applicable here, and I'll get to that later. And again here, same thing. We can see the C sharp minor, D, and E that we entered there, but we also see the underlying chord, which is E. So I'm going to just now play this from bar 25, and we'll hear that pattern play through there. So there you go. It was 2/16 and an eighth note, and then 2/16 and an eighth note there. Now I'm going to go back into the Microchords dialog again, just by typing M to go back in here. Now, when I was listening to that back, I liked the first one, da-da-da. But here, rather than go da-da-da, I want it to be da-da-da. So that's a triplet. So you can do that as well. I'm just going to change this here to triplets. Now you can see there's only 3 in here. And you can combine triplets with 16th notes. If I wanted to enter more chords here, they would still be 16th notes. I would have to change this to triplets to get that. But now that it's like this, these will actually be triplets. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to start here from bar 25 again. And we'll hear now that this is still playing the same 16th notes. And these will be playing triplets. And you can see as well, visually, you can see that these are 16th notes because there's a slot here, here, and here, and then there's an empty space down here. So you can see it's da-da-da for the 16th, 2/16ths and an eighth. But here, they're all spaced out evenly, indicating that it's triplets. Da-da-da. All right, so let's play and see what that sounds like. All right, so yeah, I really like the way that turned out. So now I'm going to explain a little bit why the underlying chord here, the D here, and the E here, is significant. Frequently, these microchords, the purpose of them will really be just as passing chords. And you don't necessarily want all of the instruments in the band to be playing passing chords. Sometimes if just a few instruments, 1 or 2, play those passing chords, but the others just play the main chord, that's very effective as well. So I'm going to show you that right now. We'll go back into Microchords. And now I'm going to actually exclude a bunch of the tracks in here so that they will not follow the microchords. So I'll press this set button here to exclude. And because I only want a couple of them to be included, I will exclude all. Now I can pick a couple of these that I'm going to want to actually follow those microchords. So this one here, ballad power eighths, this is the power means that it's playing power chords. So that one, I think I will include that one. So you can see all the rest have this excluded beside them because I selected exclude all, but then I selected this and set it to include. So that no longer has that excluded sign behind it. Now these other ones here are also power chords. So I'll include that one and include this one. So what we're going to have now is a lot of the instruments will ignore those, but those 3 different guitars that are playing power chords will all play those. So let's see what that sounds like. So I really liked that as well, and it was a little more subtle this time. You could still hear those rhythms in there, but it wasn't like right in your face. So you can see that these microchords, in addition to just allowing you to have multiple chords per beat, it also opens up great arranging possibilities for you. I'm going to go back in again, and maybe if we want to make it just a little bit more obvious, I'll include the bass as well. So the bass will now be playing those passing chords as well. And let's listen to that. I have one of our new funk styles loaded here. And I'm going to use this file to show you how you can enter microchords into the bars without actually going into the Microchords dialog. I'm also going to use this file to show you how to use motifs, what they are and how they work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the first 8 bars And I'm going to type in a bunch of motif examples, different rhythmic patterns, just so you can see how they get entered in. For example, how you enter in triplets just on the screen here, or how you enter 2/16 and an eighth, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to show you motifs down here at bars 11 and 12 and 15 and 16. And the motifs are different from the microchords in that the idea with them is not that you're changing chords, just that you're doing rhythmic hits on the same chord. So first of all, I'll just go up to here, and as a reminder for how to enter chords into Band in a Box just in general, not counting the microchords, there are 2 cells in each bar. And so the first cell is beat 1 and 2, and the second cell is beat 3 and 4. And to enter a chord on the second beat, you enter the first chord, and then a comma, and then the second chord. So there we have an F at beat 2, and then you could do the same beat 3, beat 4, etc. I'll just delete those. If you don't want a chord at beat 1, you just want it at beat 2, just enter nothing, and then a comma, and then the second chord you want. And then that gets entered at beat 2. Okay, so microchords are similar to that, except they also involve parentheses. So it's basically like entering that, except for each chord, you enter a bunch of chords within a set of parentheses. So I'll start off here, and I'm thinking for this, maybe we have the A minor 7 chord lasting for 2 bars, and I think maybe at beat 2, I want decca down, like a 2/16 notes and an eighth note. And I want to just have a couple of different chords, passing chords, and maybe just the guitars would do that. So I'll type comma to indicate that I want nothing changed at beat 1. So now I'm at beat 2, so I put a left parentheses, and now whatever I enter within this, separated by commas, is what will be added as microchords. So, for example, if I type B7, comma, B flat 7, comma, A minor 7, if I was to put a parentheses on it now, there's only 3 chords in there, so that would be interpreted as triplets. But I don't want triplets, I wanted it actually to be a 16th, and an eighth. So I'm going to just hit backspace to get rid of that. And I'll put an extra comma there, indicating that there would be something after it. And now I'll type the right parentheses. And now when I hit enter, you can see those microchords are entered. And if you recall from earlier in the video, if you have a chord there, a chord there, a chord there, and then a space here, that means 16th, eighth note. So there the microchords have been entered. If I go into the microchords dialog now, we can see that that's how I would have entered them if I had gone into the dialog, but I didn't have to. And it was a very easy way to just enter those chords right in the main chord chart. I'll do another example, and maybe this time I will do triplets. So I want to do it at beat 3. So this cell is beats 3 and 4, so I'll actually just start it here this time. So I'll enter parentheses, and maybe I'll go E flat 7, comma, D7, comma, D flat 7. And now, unlike there where I added another comma, I won't add a comma here. I'll just put a parentheses. And there we go. That has now been added as a triplet. So it'll be da, 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 will be that rhythm. And actually, now that I see that, maybe I do want something at beat 4 here as well. So decca down. So triplets and another 16ths, 2/16ths, and an eighth here. Now I don't need to actually enter anything in here. I could just actually type a comma and go bracket C, D flat 7, C. I'll type another comma because I want this to be 16th notes. So I'll hit parentheses there, and now all of those are entered in there. So we now have those microchords as well in there. I'll add a couple more along the same lines. In bar 5 here, maybe I'll only put something at beat 4. So then before I type a parentheses at all, I just type a comma, indicating that I'm now entering chords for beat 4, put it in a parentheses. And here I'll put a comma at the beginning, meaning nothing at the first 16th note, nothing at the second 16th note. But then I'll go G7, G flat 7, and end parentheses. So there you go. Now they're at the bottom. So there was nothing for the first two 16th notes and just two 16th notes there. And maybe I'll put that, that same kind of pattern. I'll do that here at bar 7 as well. So comma to indicate that I'm entering stuff at beat 4. In the parentheses then, I'll put again comma, comma, D7, D flat 7, parentheses. So same idea as this I now have here. Now, I think this is going to sound pretty weird, particularly if all of the instruments are playing it, but I was thinking maybe just guitars 2 and 3 will play these, and all the other instruments will just play through. So I'm going to go to this bar here and set the include, exclude instruments. Now that you do have to go into the dialog for. But if I set them here, then they stay that way until they're changed again. Now I'm going to change them later for another reason, but I'll get to that later. But for now, if I'm in bar 2, I can just type M to go into the Microchords dialog and set. I'll do the same thing I did last time, exclude all, and then guitar 3, include, guitar 2, include. Okay, so now we should have this, when I play this, the bass, guitar 1, and of course the drums and the horn section will all just play the main chords. They won't play any of these microchords, but guitars 2 and 3 should play the microchords. So I'll press play and we'll see how this weird thing sounds. So yeah, that was interesting. And because it was just those two guitars, it didn't seem obtrusive. You know what? I'm going to change the exclude here at bar 5. Maybe for these ones, I'll let it include the bass. So again, I mentioned this before, but when you set the excluded tracks, it stays that way until you change it. So we set it at bar 2, but we're now changing it at bar 5, and then it'll stay this way until we change it again. So I'll set this, and everything will remain the same. Guitars 2 and 3 are the only ones included, except the bass I will also include. All right, and let me just play it from bar 3 then. All right, so now I want to actually put in some motifs. So for bars 9 and 10, I want to leave them alone, but for bar 11 and 12, I want to have the horn section playing some short stabs rather than, because the horns have been playing just pads throughout, and that's what this particular style is. It's meant to be just regular pop pads. But I want to have an actual motif playing here at bar 11. So this one, it's actually possible to enter these in the same way as you entered the microchords, just sort of different codes. But I'll go into the dialog to show you in here. So this line here, the rest and the motif, both of these lines are to do with the motif feature. So it's very similar to the idea of the microchords, except the idea is not that we're changing chords. So we're just leaving this as C major 7, but we want to have certain accents basically in it. So what I want is a like 3, 4, bop, bop, 3, 4, bop, bop. So that rhythm is basically the first 16th note of the beat and the last 16th note of the beat. and I want them to be short. So all the rest of them in here, I'm going to put in rests. So it's only going to play there, and then everything else is going to rest. Now, I want this pattern at bar 11 and 12, and then I also want it at bar 15 and 16. So for that, I'm going to use this area here, copy microchords. So that's going to copy the current bar, and I only want it to be 1 bar long, and I'm going to copy it to bar 12. So if I press this button, copy microchords now it's copied to bar 12. I also want it copied to bar 15 and 16. So now if I go to bar 12, we can see that these motifs are here. I can also go to bar 15, see that they're here as well, and go to 16, they're here as well. Incidentally, when you click here, any bar that has some kind of motifs or microchords, there will be either an asterisk or a T if there's a triplet as well. But the ones that don't, of course, there's nothing here. Now, there's one more thing I have to do here and set the excluded tracks. So right now, the last time I set this was at bar 5, and so we had 2 guitars and the bass playing the microchords, and that applies to the motifs as well. Here now, I actually just want the horns. So I'm going to set excluded tracks. I'm going to exclude all and only include the horn section. That being said, maybe, I'll try for 15 and 16, I'll try something different. And at bar 15, I will also include the bass. There we go. All right, so now I'll play from bar 9 here, and we'll see how those motifs sound at bars 11, 12, 15, and 16. All right, the last thing I'm going to show you is how to enter motifs just by typing them in the chord chart, the same way as I showed you how to do with entering the microchords. Now, first of all, I'm going to go into a couple of the bars that have microchords and motifs and go into the motifs dialog. Now, you'll notice when we typed in those chords, basically we typed in this, what's showing underneath beat 3 here and what's showing underneath beat 4 here. So when you enter things in this dialog, it also shows you what you could have entered. Well, now I'll skip ahead to bar 11 here. And we can see it's done the same thing for the motifs. For any of the subdivisions of the beat where I entered a check, it's put a little X up here. And wherever I've put a rest, it puts a little R up here. So this now is the code that you could type in to get this very motif here. And I didn't leave any blank, but if I left them blank, it would just be nothing there. So this one here is a rest, but then no rest, and then 2 more rests. So it's rest, and then nothing between those 2 commas, and then a R, and then an R there. So that's basically how you enter motifs as well. So I'll show you an example of that. So I think for this one, I want it to just be the bass following these motifs. So I will have to go in and change that before I start playback. But to actually enter the motifs, I can just get started right now by typing. So for this rhythm, I want the bass to play 3, 4, bop, bop, bop. Okay, so I'll start off with the parentheses. And then it's X, R, R, X, close the parentheses, and then another comma to get into beat 2. Then it's R, R, X, R. Although actually I'm going to go back instead of that R, I'm actually going to put nothing there, because then for the rest of the bar, I actually want to then just let the bass player play whatever the bass player was going to play for those last 2 beats. So I'm not actually resting after that. So we'll have that little motif at the beginning, but then the bass will just continue to play. So now I'll press M to enter the motif's microchords dialog just to have a look at what was entered by typing that in. And you can see that's exactly what we want here. This is what we actually typed there and at beat 2. And this is the motif that's going to be playing there. And I'll actually copy this to bar 20 as well. And to bar 23, I think, as well. But now I'll set the exclude tracks to only bass. So I'll exclude the horns here. And one final thing I'll just type in here at beats 3 and 4. Maybe I'll enter triplets here, and we'll see how that sounds. So again, I'll start off the parentheses and then go X, comma, X, comma, X. I won't put another comma, I'll just end the parentheses there, and then comma to go to beat 4, and then I'll do exactly the same thing for beat 4. So we're going to have triplets at the end of this as well. All right, so now I'll play back from bar 17 and we'll listen and see how that sounds. All right, so there you go. That gives you an idea of just the arranging possibilities that now exist with the microchords and the motifs.